The measles outbreak continues to spread. Two new states, Nevada and Delaware, have confirmed cases of the highly contagious virus. Based on CNN's count, since the year began, there have been at least 110 cases reported in these states. Even with this outbreak, we're hearing from many parents who don't want to vaccinate their children for religious or philosophical reasons. And that decision can impact the health of their child and the children around them. Are these parents legally liable? And what does the law say? Let's bring in our legal guys, Avery Friedman, a civil rights attorney and law professor in Cleveland. Good to see you. And Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor, joining us from Las Vegas. Good to see you as well.
Hi, Fred.
All right, gentlemen. All right, so Richard, you first. So if I, a parent, say I don't want my child to be vaccinated for reasons other than medical, my child gets the measles and consequently spreads it to someone else, can I be legally held liable for endangering the life of someone else?
The quick answer to that, Fred, is maybe. It's not black and white. It's not open and shut. Anybody can purchase an index number, bring litigation. There are no criminal laws against that. The states are empowered to regulate whether or not children have to be inoculated. It's a state power, not a federal power. And the states in their legislation have certain exemptions. And some of them are religious exemptions, etc. If you fall into one of those exemptions and you legitimately, that's the key, you legitimately fall into an exemption because that's where the litigation will come about, then perhaps you are protected. But be real, Fred. These people have to be real. If you don't want to inoculate your children, you probably shouldn't have those children. You're putting other people at risk. It's outrageous not to protect your children and other children around you. And just because you get an inoculation for polio or measles doesn't mean you are 100% protected. People who get it still get the disease. If they're around, people have it. And if you get 2 doses, people still get it. So common sense and science in 2015 dictate get your kids inoculated or keep them home. End of story.
So then, Avery, I saw you were in agreement for the most part until
I was until we, I guess, discovered a new dimension of birth control, not having children. If you decide before you have a child, not to
taking care of the children. That's what it's about.
Listen, all right, let's dial it down. The reality is that most states provide for an exemption, either religious or conscience. That actually is the problem area because we have to recognize the public health reality, we have to recognize the severity of consequences, and we have to recognize the reality of mortality. I mean, basically all of science says, Frederica, that inoculations are critical, and people like Donald Trump and Janie McCarthy, Playboy fame, are entitled to their opinions. They're not entitled to their facts. And that's part of the misinformation that is disseminated. There is no connection between autism and issues like that and inoculations. That is fantasy. It is myth, and science backs that up. And I want to say that there were 3 years of hearings in Congress, chaired by Dan Burton, a former congressman from Indiana, who said there was that the evidence didn't support that there wasn't a connection. That was crazy. Bottom line, inoculations has to support public health.
Okay, so we won't win the argument on that right now, but then I do wonder if the cases of negligence, if legal cases of negligence can be made when a parent opts not to get their child vaccinated, they suffer brain damage from measles or they die, and we're not talking about an exemption for medical reasons because we just profiled a young child who had leukemia, who his immune system just wasn't strong enough for that child to have measles. But when you talk about, I guess, the legal recourse, are parents looking at possible negligence charges against them if their child or someone else's child, is endangered?
Yeah, I would say yes to that,
as a result of no vaccinations.
I would say yes to that, and the states have the overriding power for the general welfare of the children. The state's power over the children is greater than a parent. And if the states enact
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
That's law.
Well, wait a minute.
That's law in 2015. Okay.
Hold on.
Make a child. You can make agreements. Spouses can make agreements, and the judges can say no. This is in the best interest of the children.
Okay.
The court.
All right, real quick.
There is no
and the state
reported case
has a greater power.
let's answer Frederica's question. There is no reported
and philosophical objections.
Frederica's question is there negligence?
All right, so hold on,
the
Richard.
answer
Avery,
is there's no reported case, unfortunately. No reported case.
All right.
Right. So what's the viability? Are you really, are you bound to your religion? Are you a practicing person? Is it meaningful to you? And even if it is, Fred, think about the reality of the situation and the suspension of all intellectual thought, not inoculating a child. What basic protection can you give a child other than inoculation? It's ridiculous.
Congress and the state legislatures will never go along with that logic. I agree with it. It is politically impossible. It will never happen in this country.
New York State says, get your kids shots.
So as a result, I mean, because this is the kind of argument that is taking place in many doctors' offices, you know, involving parents and their pediatricians, et cetera. But because it is so heated, because so many people see it different ways, do you see that it would serve this nation well, that there would be a national standard? Of course, there would still have to remain exemptions.
It would be,
Fred, how can you intellectually...
politically realistic.
How can you intellectually see it different?
So finish up on that, Avery?
Yeah,
real quick,
it is not politically realistically. I agree with the science. By the way, one case out of New York took away a 3-year-old from a dad who failed to have her vaccinated by measles.
Beautiful.
That is the only reported case that I've been able to find. And that's about it. No national standard, no state standard.
Okay. And
Fred, in 2015, Fred, how can you intellectually decide not to give your child
not intellectual, it's political,
and good health?
It's political.
How can you intellectually, if you care and love your children, how can you not want for their best interests?
Well, that
Isn't
disregards
really the bottom line
religious argument. That disregards the
religious argument. Is garbage. Total. It's a suspension of intellectual thought. That's what the religious argument is.
This underscores the ongoing debate that really sweeping this nation, just as the cases of measles also sweep through this nation. All right, thank you so much, Richard, Avery. Always appreciate you. Thanks so much.